Didactic Unit 1. I Aliste, Tierra de Alba and Tierra de Tabara. The land of beautiful contrasts. From the average mountain to the deep gorge. From the quartzite ridges to the granite passing by the slates. From the quiet water stored by man to the noisy one that flows free. From the dense shrubbery vegetation to the sparse steppe. From the daring work of engineering to the simple popular ingenuity. And always an enormous cultural richness that has come to us, keeping models which have been effective and economic during centuries. And as something emblematic, it is the house, conceived as a place not only where you live, but also where you work. It keeps it in the home as well as complementary spaces of work. Courtyard, hayloft, stables, some place for the char, wood store. It also searches the intimacy, creating an interior world, and it hardly has a window to outside. Because of it, generally a big door called portalada is the only gate for people and animals. And with the structure covered by wood, it gives shelter to the char, is used like a store for ploughs and other tools, and allows us to do a lot of tasks, protected from the sun and the rain. The height of the char, where the products of the land are transported, is taken into account not only for the door, but also for the depot of grain, staying the grain store in a higher place, like the hayloft, frequently on line over the door. But in such a wide zone, the kinds of houses admit many variants. Thus, there are some urban houses, mainly in Alcañices, Tabara, and Carvajales de Alba, the three villages the most urbanized. They are houses which are on line with dividing walls each other and with two floors, which have some balconies upstairs and some windows downstairs. There are some terraced houses, on line too, and with two floors, but which have a corridor in wood upstairs, space conceived as prolongation of the house, like a store and protection of the out in the open, not to relate to the street. There are some closed houses, humble, on line and between dividing walls, without openings to outside, with one or two floors and only one entrance to the house. There are other houses called portaladas, due to the two enormous doors for the passing of the chars, but with another smaller in one of the doors for the passing of the people, ornamenting the top with plasters between them. The door gives access to the courtyard, and this one to the house and to the rest of the agricultural premises. There are some houses with outsized stairs, which give access to the house along a corridor in wood, as the downstairs is reserved to stables. There are houses which lack of courtyard. There are some detached houses, houses whose floor is usually rectangular, without dividing walls, and not on line to the street, and they may have outside stairs and corridor. The construction of all of them is made of the materials of the zone: stone, mud, and wood. The granite is the predominant material in the south of the region, as the slate, complemented by the wood, is in the rest. It is frequent too that the walls are made of slate and the doorways are framed by granite. The mud is used preferably to make inside walls, to plaster walls like construction material, for dividing walls, and even combined with the stone, which in this case is reserved to the downstairs to avoid wetness and noises, keeping the adobe for the upstairs. The floors of the buildings vary from the rectangular to the oval ones, with curved surfaces, reserving the last ones mainly for haylofts and the first ones for houses. It is always given prominence to the facade of access, respect to the other ones, reserving the best pieces for it. Big corbels are carved to be used as support to balconies and corridors and to support the lintels of the doors. The walls in general are made in rough stone, in pieces of different sizes, reserving the biggest ones for the weak points of the edification, like the corners and the protection of doorways. The walls are made without any mortar. The pieces of granite can have decorative motifs. The cross, used as protector of the house or as a testament of the religious sentiments of the owner. The star of 6 points scripted in a circle, symbol of the solar energy. Decorations of geometric shape and especially inscriptions on the lintels, referring to the name of the owner and the date of the construction. Because of it, it is not strange to find some decorated stones of Roman and medieval ages incorporated to the walls. The wood of the zone is used to make the forged of the floors, the ceilings, the covers which the tiles are leaned on, the little roofs, the doors, the big doors and the corridors. It is also used as lintels and jambs of doors and windows in zones where the slate predominates. Here the carpenter develops his fantasy, carving geometric and religious motifs. And here the explosion of colour of the region comes, because big doors and corridors are usually painted in bright colours: green, ochre, blue and red. A lot of times they are accompanied of the whitewashing of the whole facade, plastered, or only the frame of doors and windows, to imitate the colour of the towns as well as to proportion a bigger luminosity to the houses. This work in wood is complemented by the locksmiths made by the blacksmiths of the zone. Geometric decorative motifs on the protector crosses, on the animals, and even on the advances of other times, like the bicycle driven by a person with a hat of a bullfighter. And they are always finished by a drawing of lines and points that generate triangles. These houses are situated in villages, in general small, well urbanized, with well-defined squares and streets, which at the end of them are generally curved to be adapted to the traffic of the chars. Villages where there is still a furnace left, where the wheel rims of the char were adjusted to the circumference of the wood. Villages where there is a cross station or a hermitage left in their entrances, where people used to say a prayer when they began or ended the day in the lands. Villages where the washing places and fountains with round arch and lintels, which had some spouts and a trough made of big flagstones at ground level, were object of continuous goings and comings to carry the water in pitchers and earthenware jugs. This fact favoured the pottery work too, that exists in the zone because of the potters of Moveros. though the ancient kilns to cook the mud are only the memory of the past, replaced with the electrical kilns. Next to it, some hens peck the grass and a peacock shows haughty off. Watching the construction material of the house, you can deduce the geomorphology of the zone. The whole region was risen in the primary age by the Hercynian mountain range and devastated by the erosion during the secondary and tertiary ages, bringing in a large plain of slate materials and a sierra, La Culebra, with hard ridges of quartzite that runs along the region, decreasing in height from northeast to southeast. From 1,243 meters of Peña Mira and branching out in the sierras of Las Cavernas, Las Carvas, Contadores and Cesnández. La Culebra is the northern boundary of the region, separating firstly of Sanabria and La Carballeda, and more to the east of Los Valles. In the south, between Fonfría and Villalcampo, the granite comes to the surface, which goes along Sayago, in combination with quartzite. Here the plain is interrupted brusquely by the squeezing of the river Duero in the cold Arribes. The Tierra de Alba is marked by the fault of Carbajales, where the river I Aliste runs through between quartzite and slate. The oriental part of Tierra de Tábara is zone of transition between the plain and the sedimentary basin, with some strips of tertiary materials. Therefore, the grounds on slate and quartzite are siliceous, little deep, acid, and with a few nutrients, and on the surface with gravel and pebbles. This one makes them suitable for the livestock and the forestall exploit, and less for the agriculture. All this is translated into a cattle tradition, with the cow from Aliste suitable during centuries for the work in the lands, and now appreciated for its meat. And the Zamoran donkey has been strong for the charge and the work in the lands too. And this region has got the biggest number of them. The first ones and the others, accompanied of sheep and a few goats called cabriadas, form part nowadays of the landscape, taking profit of the numerous prairies closed by fences called cortinas. These ones can be made with vertical stones or vertical slate and pieces of masonry to fit in, sticking fenced stones called fincones, which two long stones called pelgones are leaned on. Between fincon and fincon, irregular stones called tejeras are placed to fit in each other. Frequently the conjunct is covered by other stones called coberteras. Other constructions related to the livestock are also the vaults, built in granite and wood, where cows and horses were tied to forge them. And the farmyards, circular plots in stone, with a narrow roof in hawthorns and brooms, leaned on right feet in wood or in slate, used to protect the livestock from the bad weather and the attack of the wolf. And the shepherds have also huts made of stone masonry to be protected of the rain and the wind. It is due to the predominant climate in the region, the continental one, with cold and long winters and short and very hot summers. The precipitations are few, decrease from north to south and from west to east. Only Los Arribes del Duero and the valley of River Manzanas have softer winters and longer springs, what has helped to appear and exploit of Mediterranean vegetation like the olive tree. The olive tree has got its leaves in a lance form, and its flowers are off-white, whose fruitful are the olives, where the oil is extracted from. And to extract the oil, some oil presses, rudimentary, were built, moved by donkeys, where the olive was pressed. The rivers are also protagonists in the configuration of the landscape and the region, because three of them mark the boundaries. The river Esla separates it from Tierra del Pan and de Campos in the east. The Duero marks the gap of Sayago in the south, and the river Manzanas is the natural boundary with Portugal in the west. The river Esla goes along the oriental border of Tierra de Tábara, and it makes it firstly stored by the dam of Santa Eulalia de Tábara, then